Welcome to the Do You Speak English series on Whispered Hub. In this series, we'll explore practical tips and engaging lessons to help you improve your English speaking skills. Join us to boost your confidence and fluency in everyday conversations. Hi, my name is Mia. I'm a student at the university studying English literature. I love reading novels and exploring different literary worlds, but there's one big problem. I struggle with remembering vocabulary. Despite studying hard and spending hours memorizing words, I often forget them quickly. This frustration led me to seek help from my professor, Dr. Thompson, an expert in linguistics and a kind mentor. This is the story of my journey to improve my English vocabulary, guided by Professor Thompson's unique and fun methods. Chapter 1. The Struggle Begins. It all started in my second year of university. My English literature courses became more demanding, and the texts we studied were filled with complex vocabulary. I spent countless hours making long lists of words, repeating them over and over, but it didn't help. A week after memorizing a list, I could hardly remember half of the words. It was disheartening and made me doubt my ability to succeed in my chosen field. One particularly difficult week, I had an important exam coming up. I knew I needed to expand my vocabulary to perform well, but the words just wouldn't stick. I decided it was time to seek help. Professor Thompson had always been approachable and understanding, so I made an appointment to discuss my problem with him. Chapter 2. Meeting Professor Thompson. The day of my appointment, I walked into Professor Thompson's office, feeling a mix of nervousness and hope. His office was lined with bookshelves filled with volumes on language and literature, creating an atmosphere of wisdom and knowledge. Professor Thompson greeted me warmly, his eyes twinkling behind his glasses. "Mia, come in. Sit down. How can I help you today?" he asked. I took a deep breath and explained my struggle with remembering vocabulary. I told him about the long lists, the repetition, and the frustration of forgetting words so quickly. Professor Thompson listened attentively, nodding as I spoke. "I understand, Mia. Many students face the same challenge. Traditional methods like rote memorization can be quite ineffective and boring. But don't worry, there are more engaging and effective ways to remember vocabulary. Let's explore them together," he said with a reassuring smile. Method 1. Discovering the method of loci. Professor Thompson introduced me to the first method, the method of loci. He explained that this ancient technique involved using familiar places to remember new information. It sounded intriguing, but I wasn't sure how it would work for me. Think about a place you know well, like your house or the university campus. We'll use these places to store new words, Professor Thompson explained. Let's start with your house. He asked me to visualize my house clearly in my mind. I imagined walking through the front door, into the living room, kitchen, and other rooms. Professor Thompson then asked me to place new vocabulary words in different rooms. For example, we chose the word book and imagined a big, thick book on my kitchen table. Now, imagine a shoe on the sofa in your living room, he instructed. I pictured the shoe clearly in my mind. Great! Now, mentally walk through your house and recall the items you placed there, Professor Thompson said. I visualized my kitchen and saw the book on the table, then moved to the living room and saw the shoe on the sofa. This method works because our brains love pictures and familiar places. By associating words with specific locations, you create a story in your mind that's easier to remember, he explained. I was amazed at how effective this simple technique was. It felt like a fun game rather than a tedious memorization exercise. Method 2. The power of mnemonics. The next method Professor Thompson introduced was mnemonics. He described mnemonics as creative tricks to help remember information. They could be acronyms, rhymes, or funny phrases. This sounded like a fun way to learn, and I was eager to try it. Let's take the word big, Professor Thompson suggested. We can create a funny phrase like, "The big elephant is very big." The repetition and the image of a big elephant will help you remember the word. I laughed at the simplicity and humor of the phrase. We moved on to the word train. Professor Thompson created a rhyme. The train in the rain stays on the plane. The rhyme made it easy to remember the word. Mnemonics work because they make learning fun and interesting. Creating funny phrases, rhymes, or acronyms grabs your brain's attention, making the words more memorable, he explained. I realized that learning vocabulary didn't have to be boring and repetitive. It could be creative and enjoyable. Method 3. Visual associations. Next, Professor Thompson introduced me to visual associations. He explained that our brains are wired to remember pictures better than words alone. By creating vivid mental images, we could make vocabulary stick more effectively. When you learn a new word, create a picture in your mind that represents it. Make the picture funny or unusual to make it more memorable, he said. For example, when learning the word mountain, he suggested imagining a tall mountain with a flag on top or a funny face carved into the rock. This unusual image would make the word easier to remember. We practiced with the word bike. I imagined a bike with giant, colorful wheels. The image was so vivid and unusual that it immediately stuck in my mind. Drawing pictures also helps, Professor Thompson added. You don't need to be an artist. Simple drawings work just fine. I drew a bike with big wheels on a piece of paper. The act of drawing helped reinforce the word in my memory. Visual associations turned out to be a powerful tool, and I found myself enjoying the process of creating mental images for new words. Method 4. Using words in context. Professor Thompson emphasized the importance of using new words in context. He explained that using words in sentences and conversations made them more meaningful and easier to remember. When you learn a new word, try to use it in a sentence right away. This helps you see how the word fits into a sentence and makes it more relevant, he advised. We took the word challenge and created a sentence. Learning English is a fun challenge. This sentence helped me understand how the word was used in context. Professor Thompson also encouraged me to use new words in conversations with friends and family. Talk to people about your new words. For example, you could say, I love a good challenge. Using words in real conversations helps reinforce them in your memory, he said. I started practicing this method with my friends. Whenever I learned a new word, I made a point to use it in our conversations. This made learning vocabulary feel more natural and less like a chore. Method 5. The benefits of writing. The final method Professor Thompson shared was writing. He explained that writing new words helped reinforce them in my memory because it engaged multiple senses. When you write a word, you see it, think about it, and use your hands to write it. This creates a strong memory in your brain, he explained. I started keeping a vocabulary journal. Whenever I learned a new word, I wrote it down several times. For example, with the word struggle, I wrote struggle repeatedly. Then, I made sentences like, I struggle to wake up early, and she struggles with math. Writing sentences helps you see how the word is used in context and improves your overall language skills, Professor Thompson added. Writing became a daily habit for me. Each day, I wrote a few new words and made sentences with them. I also reviewed my journal regularly to reinforce the words I had learned. Chapter 3. The Turning Point. As I practiced these methods, I noticed a significant improvement in my vocabulary retention. Words that had once slipped away so easily now stuck in my memory. I felt more confident in my English classes and could read complex texts with greater understanding. One day, Professor Thompson asked me how I was doing with my vocabulary. It's amazing, Professor. The methods you taught me have made a huge difference. I'm remembering words much better now, I said with a big smile. I'm glad to hear that, Mia. Remember, learning should be enjoyable. When you make it fun and engaging, your brain will naturally remember better, he replied. His words stayed with me. Learning vocabulary had transformed from a frustrating task into an enjoyable journey. I was no longer just memorizing words. I was experiencing them in new and creative ways. As word spread about my newfound methods, my friends started to take notice. During one of our regular study sessions, I shared the strategies Professor Thompson had taught me. To my surprise, everyone was eager to try them out. We decided to form a dedicated vocabulary study group. Our first session was lively. We used the method of loci to memorize a list of words. We chose our university campus as the mental map. Each person picked a location they knew well. My friend Jake chose the library, while Sarah picked the cafeteria. Imagine a giant book floating in the air when you enter the library, I suggested to Jake. He closed his eyes and smiled, clearly visualizing the scene. For the word joyful, picture a group of students dancing on the cafeteria tables, Sarah added, giggling at the absurd image. By the end of the session, we had memorized 15 new words. It was amazing how well we could recall them just by walking through our mental campus. Our study group session soon became the highlight of our week. The next method we tackled was mnemonics. The room buzzed with creativity as we crafted silly phrases and rhymes. These sessions didn't feel like studying. They felt like a fun game. The laughter and creativity made the words stick, and we all noticed our vocabulary improving rapidly. One day, Professor Thompson dropped by our study group to see our progress. We demonstrated the different techniques we had learned, the method of loci, mnemonics, and visual associations. He was impressed and praised our efforts, which boosted our confidence even more. With our newfound confidence, we decided to test our progress. We created flashcards with our new vocabulary and quizzed each other. To our amazement, we remembered almost all the words we had learned over the past weeks. "This is incredible," Sarah exclaimed. "I can't believe how much we've improved." Jake nodded in agreement. "These methods really work. I actually enjoy learning vocabulary now." The turning point had come. We realized that learning vocabulary could be fun and effective. The creative methods, the supportive group, and the engaging sessions had transformed our approach to learning. As the semester drew to a close, I reflected on how far I had come. The frustration and struggle that once seemed insurmountable were now distant memories. The journey had been challenging but incredibly rewarding. The techniques Professor Thompson had taught me became a permanent part of my learning toolkit. I used them not only for vocabulary, but also for other subjects. The methods made studying more enjoyable and effective. Our study group decided to celebrate our success with a small party. We reminisced about our journey, the funny mnemonics, and the creative visualizations that had brought us together. It was a moment of pride and joy, knowing that we had overcome our challenges and grown as learners and friends. The experience with Professor Thompson and the study group had a profound impact on my life. It taught me that learning could be a joyful and collaborative experience. With a heart full of gratitude and a mind eager for new challenges, I looked forward to the endless possibilities that lay ahead. The journey of learning was an adventure I was excited to continue. As I stood on the threshold of new academic pursuits, I knew I was equipped with the right tools and mindset. The methods I had learned were not just for memorizing vocabulary. They were lessons in creativity, resilience, and the power of a supportive community. The journey that began with a simple question to Professor Thompson had blossomed into a lifelong mission to make learning an engaging and rewarding experience. And so, my journey of learning and teaching continued, filled with new challenges, discoveries, and the unwavering belief that learning at its best is a joyful and rewarding adventure.